Jared Goff didn't cover himself in glory at the beginning of yesterday's game, but he was able to bounce back after throwing an interception on the first drive with leading a 7-play drive that went the length of the field and ended in a touchdown. My point is this. When you got a quarterback that's capable of going into Arrowhead Stadium, the season opener against the defending champs, has the ability to go into Lambeau Field in a short week and come out with wins, you got something good. This is a team that's physical. This is a team that's going to be in your face. They've got a dogged mentality, and I think they're on the ascent. Since week 9 of last year, they've been playing really good football, both sides of the ball. And again, I think they could be challengers in the NFC to the Dallas Cowboys for the third best team behind the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Detroit Lions are the one team that is not the that is not the San Francisco 49ers, that's not the Philadelphia Eagles, that know exactly who they are. The Detroit Lions come into every stadium with the game plan that they're going to be dogs up front offensively. They're going to run the football. They're going to exploit you with play-action pass. Defensively, they're going to try to find ways to scheme. They're going to try to find ways to put pressure. They're going to try to find ways to get Aiden Hutchinson's matchups in one-on-ones to give him a chance to win. They've now found ways in these last 2 games to get pressure, because going into the 3rd game against the Atlanta Falcons, this team only had 1 sack. You get 7 sacks. You end the game on the sack. We're doing the stanky leg if we Aiden Hutchinson after the last play, and they're starting to feel themselves. And we also have to remember, on the back end, you're missing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was your big free agent pickup in the offseason at the safety position. Kirby Joseph, who was the Packer killer last year with the way that he was able to intercept Aaron Rodgers, and you still find ways to make plays on the back end and be competitive. I think that this team is built in the image of Dan Campbell. This is a team that we were making fun of Dan Campbell. We were talking about his pregame presser, his introductory presser, where he was saying, look, we're going to bite kneecaps. We're going to fight. If we get knocked down 8 times, we'll stand up 9. And to now being a leader of men, to now having a team that believes they could go in to Arrowhead, they could go in to Lambeau and win football games. There was a time last year where this team was eliminated from playoff contention, and the Green Bay Packers, with the great Aaron Rodgers, were playing for their playoff lives. They walked into Lambeau with nothing to gain, nothing to win, and knocked the Green Bay Packers out of the playoffs. And not only do they do it with flair. They finished the game with the hook and lateral. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, who will not be there much longer, has found a way to make Jared Goff a person you look at, or player you look at, that says he can be the franchise quarterback on a perennial playoff contender, possibly a championship contender. This team, by the end of the season, if healthy, can be fighting with the Eagles, fighting with the San Francisco 49ers to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Well, this is a beautiful soliloquy that you just put forth, Ryan Clark, following up the beautiful soliloquy that Chris Canty threw out there. And I, for one, am incredibly, incredibly pleased. I'm touched by what y'all are saying, because you're talking about a running game led by David Montgomery. You're talking about a defense that's had sacks, 5 or more sacks in back-to-back games for the first time in a while. You brought up the fact that Dan Campbell, you know what, he's changed the culture, whatever, and obviously they've got Green Bay's number. Why did you say that? Because they won 4 straight against Green Bay. That's why. It's not like they just won last night. It's not like they just won to close out the season finale, but they won 4 straight against Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers. We are pleased with that. Absolutely so. So you got a defense that could get to the quarterback. You got a defense doing the stinky leg because their confidence is there. There's been an infusion of a new culture that's in existence. You got a running game. You got a quarterback that's pretty much mistake-free, who, by the way, has experience getting to a Super Bowl, okay? And Jameson Williams isn't even there yet. And so we take all of those things into consideration, and even that is not enough to explain and crystallize and illuminate my happiness. What illuminates my happiness is that the great Chris Canty and the great Ryan Clark both said, whoa, 49ers, Eagles. But it ain't just the Cowboys. So now there's another team in the NFC that has creeped up into the picture that has the potential to knock out the boys in Big D. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I've got no problem whatsoever. It's a very beautiful thing. I'm very happy that you guys took the time out to make that point. Thank you so much.
Well, Stephen A., listen, man, I know nothing makes your heart sing and makes you feel more joy than having doubt about the Dallas Cowboys, but they do it to themselves. The self-inflicted wounds from this team, the turnover woes, the red zone issues, them being the most penalized team in football over the last 2 years. The quarterback, Dak Prescott, having 36 turnovers in the last 34 games. All of those things are concerns. And then overall, Mike McCarthy's game management, and then the fact that their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed when it came to the run game out in the desert last week. Those are all things that make you take a step back and say, that's not winning football. And you know why it gives us cause to pause? Because those are all things that were the undoing of the Dallas Cowboys when it matters the most in the postseason against the San Francisco 49ers and basically against the 49ers the last 2 years. So I think those are the things that I look at and say makes the Cowboys untrustworthy. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the Detroit Lions are a more talented team than the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not saying Dak Prescott is inferior when it comes to quarterback play in comparison to Jared Goff. What I am saying is there is one team that knows who they are, and there's one team that knows who they aren't. There's one team that knows, there's one quarterback that knows who he is, there's another quarterback that doesn't know who he is. And that's where I struggle with trusting the Dallas Cowboys. I look at the Detroit Lions. This is a team that now has a stranglehold on the NFC North. They're basically trending to hosting a home playoff game, so it would be an easier way to make a deep playoff run. So I look at the Detroit Lions because of all of those elements that we've already pointed out and the overall physicality and the mental toughness and say that I trust them more than I trust the Dallas Cowboys right now.
RC, just one little nugget before I give I pass the baton to you. You know, Canty is a Super Bowl champion too, not just you. But what makes his Super Bowl so special is that he was in Dallas first and then had to leave in order to get one.
And there is no fear for this team in going there. They believe they have the best quarterback in Jared Goff. And I think there's something to be said about what Brad Holmes has done as the general manager there. His first big move was to get rid of Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford only goes to Los Angeles and wins a Super Bowl. And now everybody can point to him. He was the first overall pick. You know he was uber talented. Look what he could do with something better. What else do? You get rid of T.J. Hockenson. T.J. Hockenson signs the biggest deal that any tight end has ever signed. But you draft Sam Laporta. And Sam Laporta right now is a better player than T.J. Hockenson ever was in Detroit. Brian Branch, a star. David Montgomery, a star. Amon-Ra St. Brown, becoming a star. There are so many players in Detroit now that epitomize what it's like to be a Detroit fan. To be rough, to be tough-minded, to be physical, to be violent, to be steadfast. All of those things are who this team are, and that's why you trust them more than Dallas. Yes?
I'll hand it to Chris in a second, but are we sure Laporta's already better than Hockenson?
Yeah.
I mean, you sure? I mean,
Then he
you
wasn't
just got
Detroit?
drafted. You just played 3 games now. I mean, we just going to say that after 3 games?
Well, Stephen A,
Chris
he
Canty's
sure is
right.
cheaper. He's cheaper.
I know he's cheaper. He's cheaper. But already? I mean, damn, RC, there's 3 games. There's 3 games.
Bro, if you watch what Sam Laporta not only does in the short intermediate pass game, but go back to the Atlanta game with the corner post that he sells in the zombie route where Jared Goff is walking up to the line of scrimmage, and he looks at his boys. He's like, we got this one. We got one. He knows exactly where he's going with the ball, and more importantly, he knows exactly who he's going to with the football. That's the type of faith that this dude has and that he has earned in his 3rd game. It was his 3rd game as a Detroit Lion, and he goes for 60. And then you go back to watching them play inline football in the run game. And he's a part of that as well. I believe that Sam Laporta has an opportunity to be an absolute star at that position. But also think about, you go Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, early 1st round, and you're kind of like, I don't know about those picks. And the next 2 picks are Sam Laporta and Brian Branch. This team is put together in a way to have lasting power. It's not about flash in the pan.
Go ahead, Canty. Go ahead.
Yeah, you got to have guys that can contribute on their rookie contracts. That's a part of being able to win in the salary cap sport. Brad Holmes has done a great job. But, RC, I want to expand on the point that you were making about Jared Goff, because I do think there's a stigma attached to him being jettisoned from the L.A. Rams and then that team taking Matt Stafford and winning a Super Bowl in year one. A lot of people were on the fence about Jared Goff and what he could be, what his ceiling is. And what I'll say to that is this. He's been a really, really good quarterback the last 2 years in football, and I don't think people recognize just how good this dude has been. He is top 5 in QBR. The other quarterbacks in front of him, Josh Allen, Tua, Pat Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. That's the company that Jared Goff is keeping. So when we talk about who the third best team is in the NFC and who the second best quarterback is in the conference, Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions deserve consideration for both of them. So again, when it comes to quality quarterback play, not necessarily a guy that's going to be a force multiplier, but a guy that's also not going to be a detractor, that's what gives me faith in that Detroit Lions offense. It's because Jared Goff has been steady. And this has been a person that's quarterbacked a team that went to a Super Bowl. That type of experience matters when you have a locker room of relatively young players that hadn't been there, hadn't done that, don't understand what postseason football is all about. So again, nobody is saying that the Detroit Lions are more talented than the Dallas Cowboys. Nobody is saying that Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott from a talent standpoint. What I am saying is, right now today, I trust what I'm going to get from the Lions week to week more than I trust what I'm going to get from the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, and Mike McCarthy. And that is an indictment on the Cowboys in and of itself.